Welcome to Refiner's Fire, a YCP produced podcast. We bring on experienced professionals to talk about the integration of faith and work. My name is Stephen Mezzacapa, and I am YCP's Northeast Regional Chapter Manager. Joining with me today is Dave Misch, our YCP Pittsburgh Board Chair. Dave was in the banking industry for almost 40 years and proudly supported small and mid-sized entrepreneurs achieve their growth objectives. From the Catholic perspective, Dave has served the church in many different capacities, from teaching religious education to financial management. He's presently an executive in residence at Franciscan University of Steubenville and is an active in Legatus and Young Catholic Professionals. Dave founded Full Sail Consultants, a coaching and consulting firm with a decidedly Catholic bent. Dave, thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here, Steve.
Yeah, so my first question for you, Dave, and we know each other well. We've been working together the last year as being the board chair with Pittsburgh, being the regional chapter manager. I'm just curious to learn more about what has drawn you into the mission of YCP.
Oh, man. So when I retired, I was always looking for something to do. And a bunch of things kind of coalesced at the same time, all driven by the Holy Spirit, all driven by God. I sort of fiddled around. You probably know I was the CFO of the Diocese of Pittsburgh for a while.
Yes.
I thought that was the answer. It wasn't really the answer. It was a good thing to do. I think I helped the church out in that capacity. But it didn't really play to my heart. I was always praying for what place God, what do you want me to do? If I may step back just a little bit, I've always been praying to God to tell me what to do, and I've never really gotten a great answer until fairly recently. You could have done a little quicker than 68 years, but So I when I got done with being the CFO, I started doing retirement things, cooking and running and fly fishing and all sorts of fun things that retirees do. And there's only so many trout you can catch and so much brajol you can make. And it's very good though, Steve. You would very much like it.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I know. And my Sicilian eggplant parm is to die for.
Next meeting in Pittsburgh.
There you go. But so I was looking for something to do, and couple things happened. One, I ran into Scott Davidson's a friend of mine. I started coaching his son, Andrew. And he said, well, there's this thing starting called Young Catholic Professionals. I said, well, that sounds pretty interesting. And I said, I'm interested. And I did the application. And then it kind of faded away for maybe a year, maybe more. So I was always kind of interested in that. And then something else kind of came to fruition. An opportunity came around to teach at Franciscan. So a bunch of things started to coalesce around helping youth to stay in the faith.
Yeah.
Because I think we're in a culture and in a world where we really need really good, young, strong, faithful Catholics to go out there and make a difference.
Yeah.
And that hit the heart.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. And
Wow.
the book I wrote is kind of aimed at that. The son of the edge of the consulting practice is to kind of help Catholic entrepreneurs bring their children into the business as their successors. So those kind of the sun, the moon, the stars, and Father, Son, Holy Spirit, more importantly, kind of aligned and kind of dragged me into it. So it's been great.
Wow.
Been very, very blessed to find. At Franciscan, we talk about our personal mission, right? And I never really kind of understood that concept, but I understand it really, really well now.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I'm kind of living the way I should be living.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. You're understanding your personal mission. If there's a young professional trying to figure that out, where do they start to discern that for themselves?
Well, we've heard it a lot. Pray, 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 and then when you're done, pray some more. And to me, and probably the most important thing to me, there's so many things, but the Eucharist, praying before the Eucharist, praying before Jesus, sitting there with Jesus and talking to him about, what's going on. One of the things, I'm doing the Bible in a Year podcast with Mike Smith, and we went through Samuel, and David's going to attack. I forget he's going to attack somebody. He's always attacking somebody. He had to, but right. So he goes and he prays. He said, God, should I attack these people? And God says, yeah, go do it. I got your back. So he goes to his men and he says, well, should we attack these people? And no, they're all chicken. They don't want to do it. Right? So he goes back and asks God again and says, yeah, I have your back. And he does it. Of course, he's successful. So that's the kind of thing that I've been doing for my whole life, about trying to figure out what to be. And I would suggest for young people, pray to God and ask what to do. and then go ask your family, your friends, people you trust what to do, and then go back and ask God again.
Wow.
I think it's a definitive, very effective process
Yeah.
that's been in place for,
Oh yeah.
5,000, 10,000 years. It's worked pretty
Yeah.
well.
Well, it could be easy to think you just one prayer is enough, but what I'm hearing is never stop praying.
No, I don't think you
Never
can.
stop seeking.
I don't think you can. Yeah, you do never stop seeing. I totally
Yes.
agree with that. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Dave, one of the area I love to explore is, we're so blessed to have experienced professionals like you in YCP. And that's something that's always stood out to me about YCP. All of our chapters have not just the young Catholic professionals leading the operations of the chapter, but each chapter has a board of directors of experienced professionals to mentor them. What impact do you see boards having on YCP?
Well, we should be bringing, if we're doing our job properly, we should be bringing, first off, we should be bringing perspective and faith and training for the staff, right? For our officers.
Yes.
About how to run their little Catholic business, because that's what each YCP chapter is. It's a little Catholic business.
Yes.
And so we should be bringing that to them. We're also a presence, I think, when we go to events and whatnot, right? That, here's this guy who was in banking 40 years, and this is a guy that was, working in the telecommunications industry for 25 years, and we can bring perspective in that. So we kind of bring an overlay to, I think, the members, that this is not just, about our little world.
No.
So,
And I love, we've talked plenty of conversations of it just being a little mini Catholic company, because it is the ultimate, executive experience for some young Catholic professionals. And from a board member's perspective, I'd be curious what you would say to some volunteers, members, or attendees at YCP events who are feeling a nudge of maybe to want to get involved, or let's say discerning being a chapter president. What would you say to someone who's discerning that opportunity?
I think it was alluded to in yesterday's speech by Peter and by Daniel. At the end of the day, we have to go back to what's the mission of YCP, which is to get people to heaven.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, if you're discerning that, I think we have to be laser focused on that. We're trying to get people to heaven.
Yes.
And is that maybe it may or not be the best way for you to do it, because God may call you in a different way. But if you look at it, and you pray, and you look at it with that lens, we're trying to get people to heaven, I think you'll get the answer, the right answer, God's answer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because it could be tempting, just like in professional work opportunities, ministry opportunities too. There's at times where the self could rise up on me. There's this one acronym I came across with EGO, and it is to edge God out.
Yeah.
And that could happen. And I love your response, because you take it into the Lord before the ambition of the opportunity. Is this how God wants to use me to bring more people to heaven?
Well, so that's very interesting you bring that up, because I was going to say this too about your question. You could do it for the wrong reason. You could do it because you're trying to make connections. You could do it because you're trying to make sales. You could because you're trying to be a big deal in Pittsburgh. And you're using it as a stepping stone for you, not a stepping stone for God. And that's the wrong reason to do it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it really does sort of matter. And I have to say, it's been an interesting experience for me, this retiring stuff, which I haven't been very good at, by the way. In fact, I stink at it. But I have to always step back and question, am I doing YCP for me? Because I want to say I was the chapter, the head of the board of YCP. Or am I doing it for the young people and trying to get them to heaven?
Yeah.
Right? I think I know the answer.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty happy with the answer. Or writing the books.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons I write the books is because I think there's a lot of faith stories that are at the intersection of business and faith that I think are worth sharing with people. But am I really doing it for that reason, or am I doing it for some ego reason? I think I'm doing it for the right reason. And I pray that that's not the case.
Yes.
I'm pretty darn sure that it's not the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Because I feel good, right? If I didn't feel good about it and write about it, then I kind of know that's the right thing. You kind of know when you're doing the wrong thing.
Oh, yes.
You kind of know.
Well, it's, adding on to what you mentioned earlier, is of never stop praying,
Yeah,
never stop seeking humility,
right.
because we're human beings, and, we could be vulnerable to all different things. And I think it starts with that question of, why am I doing this? Is this for me, or am I edging God out? And I think it can be tempting to try to figure that out on your own.
You
But
can't figure it out on your own.
exactly.
Again, it's been alluded to in this session, this affair here. When you get to the point where, okay, I can't do this myself, and you surrender, that's when you're there.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's where the enemy wants to keep you in your own mind trying to figure it out. But you need to go to your peers. And I think that's why the board is so valuable, because you could help people discern where they're at and help them through that process.
Well, and if you lead by example, because one of the things I was going to say, you mentioned, we talk about prayer and the importance of prayer, making decisions, and, being a business person or running a YCP chapter. You can pray in a gazillion different ways. For me, the best way is in front of the Eucharist. But you can't always be in front of the Eucharist, right?
Yeah.
Right? But I'll just say, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to keep my head in the right place. Right? I have an interesting thing here, right? That I've sort of discovered. There's a story of Martha and Mary, right? And of course, Mary's sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to Jesus talk. And Martha's there cooking and making the brajol and, setting the table and, right? Getting the cannoli ready and all that kind of good stuff, right? And Martha's kind of getting ticked off, right? Because she's doing all the work and Mary's listening to Jesus. But there is a time to be a Martha and there is a time to be a Mary. And Martha's doing what Martha does so Mary can do what Mary does. And the wisdom that you have to pray for God for is to know when to be a Martha and a Mary. And that's true as a board member of YCP. That's true as a business person running my banks.
Yeah.
It's true as a writer. When am I a Martha and when am I a Mary?
Wow.
When am I serving and when am I just listening to Jesus?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and tell us more about your career too. What was it like integrating your faith into your work throughout your career?
And I've been as overt as I could be, working for public companies.
Mm-hmm.
So since I was, let's say 30, because I had my kind of pre-30 dark era, right? But ever since I was 30, I always knew my faith was super important. And so even at a company where it might not have been particularly, it would have been frowned upon to have a cross in my office, I did. Or I wrote a scripture thing on the whiteboard. I had a little statue of St. Francis on my credenza, or I had the New Testament on my coffee table. So I was always involved in stuff, right? So whether it's the Catholic Community Foundation in LA, or the Catholic Education Foundation, or teaching RCIA, or I was involved in a whole bunch of stuff like that, right? So I've had that as background. And I always tried to make decisions in the context of my Catholic faith. So justice, fair, treating people that you want to be treated, being honest with them, being respectful of them, acknowledging their dignity, making the most of their person, both spiritually and from a financial perspective. So I always try to take that into account.
Wow.
I would say though, Steve, that right now, what I'm doing blows all that other stuff away.
Wow.
It was still quasi-separate in a sense, but now it's like 100%. Everything I do is oriented that way.
And it's just integrated. It's like undivided.
That's right. The undivided life is what, Jeff Scheffelbaum or whatever does, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a pursuit for all of us.
Yes.
What advice do you have for that 30-year-old? And they're in a secular work environment and they're doing the small things. They have consistency, but how do they continue to pursue and run after that undivided life?
Well, I forget who said it. Oh, it's Dave Duran said it yesterday. I really haven't heard it said this way before, and I think it's fantastic. That's why you love coming. You learn stuff everywhere. By the way, you mentioned before, you're always seeking God, you're always seeking wisdom, right? I found a new way to phrase things, which I love. It's not about how you fit Jesus into your life. It's how you fit your life into Jesus. And I like that a lot, and I'm going to use that a lot because I think that's a really good way to explain it to people.
Yeah.
You can't go to Mass? Yes, you totally can.
Yeah.
Figure out the rest of it on the side.
Yeah. And let's lean into it for a minute because
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, and there's all different types of personalities of working professionals, but some demographic might be hesitant to speak up and say, look, I can't make the meeting because I have to go to Mass. Like that there could be a concern to assert the needs and desires to prioritize Jesus first, full stop. How could young professionals who might feel nervous to start doing that or manage up or put that on display, how could they work through that?
So I teach a course in entrepreneurship at Franciscan right now. We go through what is an entrepreneur? What are the traits that make an entrepreneur? Creativity, risk-taking, stick-to-itiveness, intelligence, financial acumen, all these other things. We go through all the things that are typical, like an Elon Musk or somebody like that. Not a good role model, but okay, the different issue.
Yeah.
That somebody like that might have, those kind of traits. And I flipped to the page and I said, what do you think the most important one is? And some people say innovation, and some people say, creativity or resilience or whatever. And I flipped the page. I said, no, it's faith. It is the number one important thing. So to your point, if you have faith, and by the way, it's not about this world. Nothing is about this world. It's only about the next one, right? So what do you care if you say, I'm going to Mass, right? Who cares, right? If people have a problem with that. First of all, I'm worried about getting you to heaven, right? Maybe that'll be a great example for you. And that's one.
Yeah.
So that's another twist
Wow.
in my later life
Wow.
that I've come to realize. That somebody just said to me a piece of wisdom I picked up. Oh, I finally get it. We're not here to get ourselves to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to get you to heaven. And you're here to get me to heaven. When you think about it that way, to your example of saying, I'm going to Mass, you're not worried about you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about, you, me, yourself, saying with the implications for that. You're more worried about, gee, Steve was messing it with me and kind of getting on my case here. But, Linda over there, she's listening to this and she's going to see the truth.
Yes.
She'll hear that. You can hear truth, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe that? You hear
yeah.
truth, right?
Yeah.
You can tell. So you do it, and you have the courage because one, you have faith that God always has your back, and B, you're trying to get people to heaven.
Yeah. Well,
By the way, now, 2026, April, if you can't have courage now, because Catholicism's rocking and rolling, right? And that's a great, great, great blessing. So now is the time to really
to step out in faith, have the courage.
go for it.
And we might need more courage even later too. So now is the time to continue to develop
That's correct. Well, somebody said that today. I think it was dipped into the bass root, and he's talking about you got to be strong now because it could be harder later.
Yeah, you
better
know.
start practicing.
Yeah, and I just want to recap because it was really powerful to reframe that you articulated for people listening. Of, well, like if I'm afraid to talk to my boss, like I want to go to church, I have to miss the meeting. I'm very much looking at the now, but you reframed it as we're worried about the next life. And when you're kingdom minded, it really does flip the script of what you're going to prioritize and what you say. And then you also said too is not just wanting myself to get to heaven, I want that person to get to heaven too. And let's say someone's in a situation where their colleagues might not be in the faith. You standing firm and prioritizing your faith. What if that is the one thing that could plant the seed for the Holy Spirit to work through that other person?
Totally agree. So two things. I've always been a seeker, and I'm reading right now Dostoevsky. Okay, I know it's kind of weird. Okay, but Dostoevsky talks about how everything you say ripples through your sin, ripples through and affects everybody else, and the good things you say ripple through for everybody else. I had a woman. I was listening to Joni Mitchell the other day, listening to the album Blue, and it reminded me of a woman, Anne Marie Goulet, who I was friends with in high school. We were all buddies. And I said, I'm thinking of you. I heard Blue and blah, blah, blah. And she said, Dave, thank you for thinking of me. I think of music and think of, different things all the time. She said, do you remember when we were in high school and we were driving around and we were listening to Running on Empty and I was in the back of the car singing harmony and you said, Ambry, that sounds great. Do you believe that woman remembered that? That's like 50 years later.
Wow.
So think about that. That just illustrated me the point of everything you say and everything you do affects somebody and ripples through. In Dostoevsky, it's the older brother Dmitri beating up some guy in a bar, and his son's seeing it, and the son's all messed up because he saw his father beat up. So, and that's obviously two very extreme examples, but it does talk about how important it is to be a good board member,
Yes,
to be a good leader, a good president of a chapter, to be a good businessman, to say, I'm going to Mass.
yeah.
I'm going to Mass.
It comes down to our motto of work and witness for Christ.
That's correct.
Because people won't only just remember what they heard someone say, but they'll remember seeing what you did
Yeah.
in a particular action. And I know from my own life, like there's mentors of mine I haven't talked to in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I still hear different phrases that they've said to me. I still visualize actions that they've taken that encouraged me.
Yeah.
You
Well, you
know?
know what the scary part about that Anne Marie story was, Steve, though? I didn't remember that at all.
Wow.
Think
Wow.
about when
Wow.
you die and go to heaven and St. Peter's in there. Oh, yeah. You're going to see the whole dang replay. You're going to see the whole film. You're going to see every word. So to think
Yeah.
it, to put it in context of that, when you say, yeah, it's to me, you ask, what's my advice for a young person? It's easy to say, I'm going to mass.
Wow.
If you're thinking about it in terms of long term.
Wow. Amazing,
So,
Dave. Thank
yeah.
you. And I just one more question for you before
Sure.
we wrap too. Just for other folks coming across this podcast and YCP, what advice would you have or encouragement for experienced professionals to consider, say, joining a board of directors for YCP?
Well, it gets back to what we sort of said in the very beginning of this discussion. I mean, when you see the mission and you think about the importance of having a bunch of 20 to 40-year-olds on fire for their faith that are out there in the business world, it's pretty hard to ignore
Yeah.
when that calling, right? And if I may talk about Pittsburgh, right? Do we have a little time to finish
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
Okay, so when we were starting Pittsburgh, the me's of the world, the potential directors, we were skeptical of the program. And I don't think you were around then, but we called up, Dallas and said, hey guys, we got some issues here. And, I think it was Peter and I think Natasha, I think.
Probably Daniel, maybe.
Daniel, anyway, some of the officers. And they brought some of the members to tell us their stories about why they're in it and what it means to them. And we're like, how much money do you want now? We're good. You want more? We'll give you more. So once you hear the testimonials
testimony.
and once you hear the impact it has on people and their faith, it's really hard to not strongly consider being a member of a board.
To contribute
Okay.
to that impact.
Or be a mentor
Yeah,
or whatever.
mentorship
But
as well.
there's a lot of ways to participate. You don't have to be a board member, but you could be a mentor. There's all sorts of ways to help. And again, once you see it and see how it works, I mean, it's pretty hard to say no to.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much again for your time to
Oh,
be on the
thank you,
show.
Steve.
It's
Yeah.
been a pleasure to continue collaborating with you and just so
Yeah.
grateful for all that you do for YCP.
And I'm grateful for what you do for our chapter. It's wonderful. So
Thank you, Dave.
if I'd be
Really
happy to
appreciate
have that partnership.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yep. God bless.
Well, that's it for this episode. May the Lord be with you, and thank you for tuning in.